What do you do if you've received a manual action from Google? So a manual action means that somebody at Google has manually reviewed your website, gone through your website, and found that your website has violated one of Google's guidelines. There's lots of different types of manual actions. You can have issues with your content, like thin content issues. You can have issues with backlinks, unnatural backlinks. You could have issues with structured data. Lots of different types, but the way you respond to a manual action in general terms is going to follow the same common steps. So let's talk about what those steps are, so that way you can respond to a manual action correctly for your website. So first and foremost, when you go to respond to a manual action, you want to make sure that you remain patient through this process. It is not an easy process to respond to a manual action, especially if you have a larger website, and especially if you have certain types of manual actions that indicate spam issues or unnatural activity on your website of some kind. Those are going to take longer to hunt down and figure out how you're going to fix them. So before you do anything else with the manual action, you want to step through and you want to learn as much as you can about this particular type of manual action. Google provides their own documentation about each type of manual action, and that documentation is helpful to give you a sense of what kinds of issues Google is targeting with this particular manual action, what kind of guidelines are involved. This gives you an idea of where problems might exist on your website, what kinds of things you're going to need to fix in order to resolve this manual action. Now, there are other people in the SEO community who have written about each manual action type, and some of these are very helpful resources that you may want to look at. But be careful that you are using reputable sources. A lot of information out there outside of Google's documents about the manual actions can be outdated, can have misleading information. So make sure you're finding good resources to help you understand what type of manual action you've received. Now, along with reading documentation and trying to learn things on your own, the other thing that you can do is hire an SEO consultant to help you through resolving this manual action. And that can be a good idea so long as you find an SEO consultant who's familiar with this particular type of manual action. A lot of SEO consultants have never gone through a manual action before, and you don't want to bring those types of SEO consultants in to respond to a manual action. You want somebody who's familiar with a manual action and knows what to do. Ideally, it's going to be somebody who's familiar with this particular type of manual action and can help you through it. Once you've learned as much as you can about the type of manual action that your website has received, the next thing you want to do is start looking at your website. You want to go through every detail you can on your website, open up every page on your website and see where your website might violate Google's guidelines. In this case, you're trying to identify everything you possibly can think of that might violate the guidelines. You want to be very broad in your investigation and in identifying the issues. I've seen some clients, when they're responding to a manual action and starting to dig in and find issues, go way too narrow at looking things. They end up dismissing a lot of things, thinking, oh, that's way too small of an issue. Google wouldn't have possibly targeted that. That wouldn't lead to a manual action. And that might be true. Maybe it is a really small issue. Maybe it isn't what led to the manual action, but it might be, and maybe there's a lot of different minor issues that add up to a pretty major issue. So you want to flag as many issues as you possibly can during this investigation process. And you don't want to dismiss anything thinking, oh, it might be too small at this point. Once you've identified all the different issues that seem to be related to this particular manual action, you want to step through and start fixing all of those issues. Now, there's a couple things to keep in mind when you're fixing the issues. The first thing you want to do, obviously, is fix the issue itself and just get that problem off your website. But as you do, you want to think through how you can prevent this from coming back in the future. So maybe there's something about editorial processes that need to change. Maybe there's something technically that needs to change on your website to safeguard against users spamming your website or something like that. Whatever that is, you want to think about those long-term approaches you can take to prevent this from happening again. What I always tell clients going through a manual action is we want to resolve as much as we can, so that way this is your only manual action you'll receive. So you want to try and figure out how you can fix these things both short-term and long-term. The other thing to keep in mind as you're going through and fixing issues is you want to keep careful notes of all the things that you have fixed. these are the pages we updated, these are the pages we removed, these are the links we removed, and so on. You're going to need that list of fixes when it comes time to write the response to Google. So after you've gone through and you've fixed everything, I usually think it's a good idea to go back through your website again and perform another investigation of your website. Go back through and look at everything one more time just to make sure you've caught everything that could violate Google's guidelines. This is where bringing in another SEO consultant can be useful to do another audit of your website, just to get another perspective, a second set of eyes, looking at things to make sure you've really caught everything that could be related to this manual action. Once you're sure that you've fixed everything on your website and you've got everything as resolved as you possibly can to now comply with Google's guidelines, you're ready to write the response. So you want to submit a reconsideration request to Google. Now, when you do, you want to make sure that you provide both the correct information and also write this in the right tone. When it comes to tone, you don't want to complain to Google. You don't want to say how this manual action hurt your business, how it was unfair, how your competitors do all these things. All that's true. It always is. But at the same time, it doesn't matter, and it's not going to help you get this reconsideration request accepted so that way the manual action gets lifted from your website. Instead, you want to take the tone of going to the principal's office in school. Admit that you made a mistake. Make sure that they understand that you know why you got this particular manual action, even if you don't think you should have gotten this manual action. You need to let Google know that you understand and you're prepared to do something about it. You then want to list all the different things that you fixed on your website. So tell Google about the pages you removed, tell Google about the practices that you're going to change going forward. So that way they understand that you have fixed these issues that exist on your website today, and you have done work to make sure these issues don't come back in the future. After you submit this to Google, it's going to take some time for Google to review everything, to look through your website, to make sure that your website now does comply with the guidelines. Assuming everything is correct, the manual action will be lifted from your website and you'll be ready to go. If the manual action comes back and Google says that manual action still applies, then you need to repeat this process and look for more issues. Hopefully in their response, Google gives you additional details of where else you could look and what else might be going on with your website. But if you were thorough enough in finding all the issues and fixing all those issues, then hopefully the manual action will be lifted. Now, while the manual action is still applied, and while you're waiting for Google to get back to you on that reconsideration, you can still be updating your website. I think that's a great time to go through your website and find other issues that might exist, update old content, fix technical issues, and so on. And through this entire process, make sure you maintain business as usual on your website. Add new articles, add new products, and so on. Keep going on your website. That way your website remains active, both for people coming to your website who are not on Google, and your website remains active. So that way when the manual action gets lifted and returns to Google search results, your website is still up to date and still current on there. If you have any questions responding to a manual action or need help going through your website to figure out why you've received a manual action, I'm available to help. I have helped clients work with manual actions of different types before, and I'd be happy to help you in your situation. You can email me at matthew@elementive.com. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it from Elementive, please subscribe. Thank you for watching.